Hello everyone, welcome back into the channel. I am Tyler, your host. This is 4th and Inches, all things NFL and Dynasty Fantasy Football, and I'm very excited to bring you guys a new video today. So these are going to be my current running back values. Now, timing is important. This is being recorded Wednesday, April 2nd. Hope you guys all had a great holiday weekend. But this is a few weeks before the NFL draft, so could be some subject to change. Also, the further we get into the offseason, the more you'll see ADP change on Sleeper and things like that. But based on this current time of year, current ADPs, things like that, I am giving you 3 running backs that I think are a strong value and why. And without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and dive right in. First running back we're going to be talking about today is the new running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, Mr. Saquon Barkley. Obviously, his entire career prior to this year has been spent with the New York Giants, and there's a lot to be excited about with Saquon right now, a lot to be bought in on, and I'm going to go ahead and take you through it. So first and foremost, Saquon Barkley. He is currently going as the running back 9-10 off the board as far as Dynasty Sleeper ADP goes. His overall average draft position is 44. Now, I understand why it's ranked this way. I understand why people have the other 7, 8, 9 running backs going ahead of him, partly age, partly situation, but partly, Saquon's age, what he's been able to do these last couple of years for the Giants, but everything's changed. And we saw what Philadelphia can do, right? They bring in running backs. There's a resurgence in their career because it's a great scheme, great franchise to play for, and when you know it, one of the best offenses and offensive lines in the NFL. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Last year, Saquon Barkley for the New York Giants, the horrendous New York Giants. I believe Daboll is a great coach, an offensive-minded coach. I think he did the best he could with a very below-average team in terms of skill level. One of the worst wide receiver rooms in the NFL. Obviously, a very underperforming Daniel Jones, an underperforming O-line, and Saquon just being by far the most talented piece on this offense is now gone. RIP New York Giants, but he now plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, who, by the way, last year was the number 1 ranked offensive line, only behind the Detroit Lions, also very, very strong. Now, did they lose Jason Kelce? Yes, they did. Have they already made some adjustments in free agency? Yes. Do I think it's very likely they'll draft offensive line at the back end of the first round? Somebody like a Jackson Powers-Johnson, something like that? Absolutely. Point being, though, this team is still going to be very, very good. This offensive line, guarantee, I bet, is still top 5, if not top 3. And he's going to be running behind the best opportunity a running back could hope for in the NFL, and by far the best team he's ever been a part of. So let's go ahead and look at the range of outcomes for Saquon. Okay, if he's being drafted, mid to late 4th round currently, RB 9-10, like I said, let's go ahead and think about that. I really think the floor is where he's being drafted, somewhere around that RB 9-10 range. I think the ceiling, top 3 running back this year in fantasy, I think he could potentially make a case for that number 1 or number 2. Obviously, that would require some CMC regression or potentially injury, and that would require Saquon staying healthy the whole year. The tush push is also a factor. Okay, we know that it has not been changed. No rules were changed. The NFL is supporting the tush push. They're just better at it. Okay, well, Jason Kelce's not there anymore, so we'll see if he was a big factor of why they were so good at it. Maybe they do it a little bit less. There was also, coincidentally, so many runs last year where DeAndre Swift went down on the 1 or 2 yard line. It was insane. Breakaway run. Even on the shorter ones, right? It's 1st and goal from the 5 or 6 yard line, and this guy's going down at the 1 or the 2. Yeah, you're not going to get those touchdowns, DeAndre. A, you're a little undersized, and B, we're not going to take the risk. We have a 98% success rate in the tush push. So yeah, he lost a lot of touchdowns last year. I think Saquon's better. I think he's going to be better hitting these gaps. He's a little bit bigger body. He's more powerful. And he's not going to hand over so many of those tush-push opportunities to Jalen Hurts on the 1 yard line. There will still be some he loses, but finishes the RB13 last year, 6 touchdowns total on a horrendous team. Imagine what he could do if he stays healthy behind this offensive line. So based on where he's going, I think he is a value. I think he'll easily outperform his ADP. I don't mind getting him at RB9, RB10. Obviously, you got a multi-year contract, stays healthy. This could be a guy that, does well going into his CMC years here. So I am very in on Saquon, and I think RB1, 2, 3 is not incredibly, outside the realm of possibilities for his finish this year. And I think the floor is safe. So love taking him where he is. And even if you reached on him slightly, I think it's okay. He's a guy that next year could be back up in the second, third round. Okay, moving on to our second running back today. We're going quite a bit down the board now. These next two are way down the list. But we're going to go ahead and take a second here to talk about James Conner. He's currently going as the 22nd running back off the board. Okay, he's got an ADP of 107, so just outside the top 100 players. And he's going around a range of guys where I probably just prefer James Conner, right? And let's look at the red flags for James Conner for just a second, right? Because a lot of you are like, well, what do you mean, Tyler? He's so old. He has injury concerns most years. Yeah, last year he was hurt a couple games. But the year before, he also wasn't. And if you think about the context of last year, there's not a lot of hurry for him to come back, right? He was hurt, could have came back earlier probably, could have pressed the timeline a little bit if they were a winning team with a winning season. They weren't. Kyler, we knew, wasn't coming back. He wasn't in a hurry. This team had a losing record. They knew it was a rebuild year. The dynamics are different a little bit, okay? Now, if you look at this offseason also, going into 2024, they signed who? DJ Dallas, right? Amari DiMercato, undrafted free agents in that room. That tells me that James Conner is going to be the guy. They do have a lot of draft picks this year, so yes, they could add a running back on day 3, something like that, but I'm not really that worried about it. James Conner's the guy. He's getting a ton of money. He finishes the RB18 last year, guys. RB18, missing a lot of weeks. He had an incredibly strong finish, won a lot of people leagues, and I don't mind if he goes down a couple weeks. If I'm getting him as a RB22 and I get an RB18 finish with him getting hurt, it's still a win. But I think if he could stay healthy, I think if this team's rocking and rolling a little bit, I think they're going to add a top wide receiver at pick 4. You get Marvin Harrison Jr. in there. You got Michael Wilson on the opposite side. Greg Dortch is in there. Trey McBride, very good, promising young tight end in Dynasty. They're not going to have to depend on him quite so much either, and that could aid in him staying healthy. So I think he's a solid RB2. I think he has RB1 upside quite easily. I think he's going to get a ton of work on this team, and if he could stay on the field, you guys saw what he did at the end of last year. Won people their fantasy championships. Let's look real quick at sleeper ADP. Like I said, he's going around 107. The running back's going around his range. Nick Chubb. Guy just came off a devastating knee injury. Yes, he'll probably be the one there, but who knows how that team's going to look. Deshaun Watson underperforming. They brought in Jerry Jeudy. I don't know what it's going to look like. Yeah, he'll still probably get a lot of work, but the guy's getting older, and he just had a devastating knee injury. Austin Eckler, going to Washington. Going to get some committee work with Brian Robinson, not even the true one, potentially. I'd rather have James Conner. Alvin Kamara is one that's interesting. Obviously, there's a lot to believe, but the case for Kamara versus Conner for me is, yes, we're feeling the regression for Kamara, but there are people in there competing for work. I think Kendre Miller has a lot going for him. Kendre Miller, by the way, who's being drafted just right after James Conner. So I think people are sitting on him. Yes, I know there's age, but I think he's the guy that can bring in a lot of value and a lot of contribution to your team in 2024, help you win a championship, and move off the guy if you're less confident going into 2025. He's not under contract with the Cardinals going into next year, but a 1-year value where I'm getting him potentially in the 10th, 11th round of my startup dynasty drafts, I don't mind it. I think this is a great pick. Moving into the third and final running back we'll be talking about today. He is even further down the board. Now, again, timing is important. This is being recorded on Wednesday, April 2nd. ADP will change the further we get into this offseason. People get smarter. You'll start seeing the ADP climb. Okay, so if you don't draft for 2 months, these players their value might be changing for you. So you got to take that in consideration. If you're drafting in a week, I think this video is even more relevant. The third and final running back we're talking about today is Zack Moss. Yep, I know. Total surprise last year. Had a lot of relevant weeks for us. Obviously, JT was down early. Came in, had multiple 20-plus great fantasy point weeks for the Indianapolis Colts. Call it some of it Shane Steichen. But we also know that this team lost its starting QB. JT was out. Pittman had some up and downs as well. Josh Downs is kind of coming in. Gardner Minshew's the quarterback. Like, amidst all of that, the guy found a lot of success. Okay? He had 7 touchdowns last year, 2 receiving. Obviously, when JT came back, we saw the regression with Zack Moss. Like, he wasn't still going to be the guy. But he was just signed to a very good team. And context means a lot. Okay? In case you missed it, Zack Moss just got inked a new 2-year deal. $9 million, few million guaranteed. It wasn't the biggest deal, but it's a deal. To go to the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay? Joe Mixon, right after, was traded to the Houston Texans. They can get a bunch of savings in payroll, this or that. So outside of that, they have Zack Moss and they have Chase Brown. Okay, Travion Henderson is still on this roster after a million years, but he's never done anything. I don't know why they like him. I don't see him getting beat out. And they have Chase Brown, the rookie from a year ago, who's a gadgety, quick guy who they could like to use in screens and things like that. And I think a better receiving threat and a better receiving option than Zack Moss. But I think Zack Moss is just going to be the guy in between the 20s. You know, get some goal line work and feel some of that Zack Moss or of that Joe Mixon role. Do I think he's going to be Joe Mixon? No, I do not. And I'm not saying that he's going to be some late round sleeper that's going to have even top 10 upside. He could, but I think he's an RB2 value going currently as the RB36, right? He's got an ADP of 156. I can get a starting running back, potentially in the 12th, 13th, 14th round of my dynasty startups, and he's a starter. They gave him enough money to feel confident, and if you look at who's going around him, you tell me. Okay, running backs going around RB36 right now. Miles Sanders. Is the guy done? Right? Alex Madison. Committee role backup to Zamir White in Vegas. Not something I'm confident about. A.J. Dillon. Yeah, he's returning on a 1-year cheap deal to Green Bay to back up Josh Jacobs and get some goal line work. But, like, Zack Moss has way more upside than those guys. And if I can get an RB2 value this late, makes a lot of sense. If we look lastly at the offense, Cincinnati, they're going to need to run the ball. They can't put the weight of the world on Joe Burrow. Shaky offensive line last year. I bet they do address the offensive line in the draft. They franchise tag T. Higgins. He's requesting a trade. Obviously, they got Chase there, but they're going to need him to be a part of this offense, you guys. They're going to need the running game to be a part of this offense, and that's with or without T. Higgins. Without, potentially they need even more out of the guy. So I think he's a great value. Zack Moss, going as RB36. Over the next few weeks, few months, he will skyrocket. Not skyrocket, but he will climb up. And, you know, maybe he's RB30, RB25 in a few weeks, few months. So see where his ADP is at the time when you watch this recording. And if he's still a value, I think Zack Moss is a fine player to take. And that is going to be the third and final player for today's video. Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, supporting the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you guys are here. If you loved some of my takes today, would love to hear about it. If you hated some of my takes today, please write them in the comments, guys. We'd love to keep the dialogues going. Thank you so much for tuning in to 4th and Inches. And again, like and subscribe to keep the content coming. Never skip a beat. I appreciate you all. Take care.